Alright, now as a lot of you guys could probably tell, um, this is not a video type that I enjoy making, so that's why I don't talk about every single person that gets into this kind of trouble. But I want to talk about Heavenly, um, because what his situation is like spanning out into creators that I do like and that I do respect, or depending on who you're talking about, did like and did respect. Um, if you're not familiar with what's going on, with the Heavenly situation, um, a girl that he used to, or a girl that he talked to previously, basically came out against him, saying that he forced her to drink while she was under the drinking age, um, and basically did things to her that she was not okay with. Um, and basically it was justified by like, oh, well, she was having a rough patch with her boyfriend or whatever. She was a cosplayer. She's part of his harem or stuff like that. I'm not going to be able to communicate all the details to you properly. I will leave the appropriate links in the description so that you can investigate all that stuff yourself. I just want to talk about basically the ripple effect that this is having. Because here's the thing: there's multiple girls, multiple different situations, but I just want to talk about like the general thing that I see the most often. Because first of all, I don't have an attachment to Heavenly's content the way that I did with like Dan when the Game Grumps stuff was going on, or Mini Lad when his thing came out, or Omrecker when his thing came out. I've only seen like clips of Heavenly on Twitter, and I know for a fact that Heavenly is a very corny person. He's a very corny individual. Uh, and his friends have called him out. I've seen Afro be like, "Yo, you shouldn't say stuff like that in this situation. Come down to earth." Stuff like that. Corny, very corny. Uh, and the thing that happens when you take somebody who is corny by nature and you give them money and you give them clout is they become a different like person on the internet. And Afro was talking about this. Afro was talking about how the main problem that Heavenly faced with this whole situation is that when he approaches a woman, when he tries to talk to a woman, he approaches them as Heavenly and not as Anthony, which I guess is his real name. And I totally understand what he means by that. There are people that will take advantage of the fact that they have an online presence, they have a following, that this person looks up to them. Call me Carson, same situation. It's an abuse of power, plain and simple. Even if you remove the alcohol from the situation, it's an abuse of power. This person liked him as a content creator, and she said that she didn't like stop Anthony from doing anything because she wanted to impress him. Basically, she looked up to this person and did not want him to stop liking her. That's an abuse of power. Um, and I've seen Griffey say like, oh well, she didn't say for him to stop. She didn't stop him. She didn't tell him to back off or anything. They were all over each other the whole night. So we need to hold her accountable too for not stopping him. We need to hold victims accountable for not saying no. Griffey's a corny ass motherfucker too. That's a very lame thing to say. If you're a lame nigga before you get money, I guess you're just gonna stay a lame nigga then, I guess. But it's like, and on some level, I guess I could see why he would think it's okay to say that, because false allegations happen and those women need to be held accountable, but you don't get to say that there's a line between what you consider to be a real victim and not a real victim. Griffey said that he feels bad for real victims. Anthony, well, I guess they're both named Anthony, huh? Heavenly said, if these were real victims, then I would feel bad. What? There's not a degree to which you make somebody uncomfortable with what you're doing before you start getting to call them a victim. If they don't like what you're doing and you kept doing it, then yeah, you victimized them. It's it seems pretty simple to me, right? And the question then I guess would become like, well, if she doesn't say anything, then how do you know it's okay? Simple. Don't use your clout, your position, your internet persona as a way to pick up girls. Because that's lame. And that's stupid and that's dangerous. It's very dangerous. It keeps getting these guys in trouble. It keeps happening. If you go and you meet a girl in the manga section at Barnes & Noble, walk up to her and say, "Hi, my name is Anthony." Don't say, "Oh, I'm Heavenly from Twitch and YouTube." Because that changes things. Anybody that looks up to someone is likely to act beside themselves if they do want to impress that person. And you don't get to just take away their right to feel like they were victimized. Right? If you do not outright consent, then you can't just use like, "Oh, well, there was implied consent," or whatever. Right? You can't just be like, "Oh, well, she was teasing me," because that's stupid. That's dumb, and that's not going to hold up in court. And another thing that's not going to hold up in court, Anthony was like, Griffey was like, "Oh, well, he lacks social cues. He's socially awkward." Two things then. If you have somebody who's socially awkward and doesn't pick up on body language or nonverbal communication in general, and they don't understand social cues, do not leave them in a room with someone of the opposite sex if there's alcohol involved. That's fucking dumb. Because you're saying that you know this person can't be trusted. Because they won't pick up on things that should be obvious. Right? If you grab at a girl and she pulls away, she doesn't want to be grabbed. Easy. But if you can't pick up on social cues and you don't realize that she does not want to be touched by you in that way at that time, then you don't need to be left alone with her. It's literally that easy. And another thing about that, saying that somebody is socially awkward, that they miss social cues, is the lamest excuse I have ever seen somebody use to defend somebody in a situation like this. That is, I don't want to keep saying corny, but that is extremely corny. There's no other way to put it. It makes no sense to me. Your Honor, in my defense, I'm awkward. Oh, sorry, case dismissed. What? That means nothing. That means nothing. Simply put, when it comes to consent, there are no excuses. Like, I've seen people even on TikTok be like, "Oh, well, you know, even if she doesn't outright say that she wants it, if you go for it and she doesn't stop you, then that's fine." It's like, y'all never finished growing up, so I understand why you would say that. But if you ask her if she wants it and she says no, you don't do it. Okay? Because even if, say you do go for it and she's okay with it, you did not get verbal consent. And to me, that's just really important. Especially considering somebody who doesn't pick up on social cues. I don't understand it. You know? And Heavenly released a statement. He put out a very long video. I watched most of it, but he's really just digging his hole deeper, right? Because he's saying things like, "I didn't do it. I'm not going to say that I did it and apologize for something that I didn't do. And if I did do it, then I would admit to it." You might as well have not said anything. You literally might as well have not said anything. And then you're using all these anecdotes about like your ex and what they were doing. It's like, what does that have to do with the current situation? If what's happening is people are saying that you can't control yourself or you don't listen when you're told no, it doesn't even have to be verbally. If it's by bodily cues, if you can't recognize that somebody does not want to interact with you like that, then that's what the situation is. That's what we're addressing. We're not talking about things that you and somebody else would do or whatever. That I don't see how any of that is relevant. You know? And it's made me lose a lot of respect for Griffey because while I agree that in certain situations stories can be falsified, and if the story is falsified, then that person needs to be held accountable. But when there's this much corroboration, then there's really no like room for interpretation, right? Another thing is he's like, normally I say believe the victims, but what do you mean? What do you mean, but? Believe victims, right? Because if a victim is lying, it'll come to light. But you need to take that seriously. You can't just be like, oh, well, some girls lie, so I'm really skeptical. And then if a group of other people come out and say that same type of thing, then you can't just be like, well, right? Like the whole thing that happened with Tobuscus 5 years ago. I was in high school. I really liked Tobuscus at the time. I didn't want to believe that somebody that I looked up to, somebody that made me laugh so many times, somebody who made so many songs that I enjoyed, was capable of the things that he was being accused of. I didn't want to believe it. And that was around the time that I learned to stop idolizing people that I don't know. Because I don't know what they're capable of. I don't know what they can do. Right? And when people continue to come forward, be like, yeah, I had a really bad experience with that person can't be trusted, it's just hard to ignore. And as such, yes, you should believe victims when they speak out. It's really disappointing that Griffey's basically took the stance of like, that's my boy, I know that man, that's my homie, so I don't like what's happening, so I'm going to defend him. That's what I don't like. That is what makes me sick about the situation. Afro. Afro Senju was one of my favorite content creators on YouTube and Twitch. One of the realest dudes out there. And Heavenly, as far as I know, was his boy. But when this whole thing went down, Afro said, I will wait to see both sides of the story. And then when he saw both sides, he's like, yep, fuck that nigga Heavenly. Lotus. Lotus Asakura. One of the best Dragon Ball FighterZ players on the internet, right? He fucks with Afro heavy. Afro fucks with Heavenly heavy. Heavenly heavy. That's hard to say. I'm sure Lotus and Heavenly interacted once or twice, right? I'm sure he fucks with Griffey, right? Lotus did not hesitate to say fuck Heavenly and fuck Griffey. Because fuck Heavenly for that kind of behavior and that whack ass justification that he gave for it, or like trying to like act like it didn't happen the way that it did or whatever. Just did a piss poor job at defending himself, made himself look more guilty in certain places, and then fuck Griffey for defending him just because that's his boy. Because you know what that does, Griffey? I doubt you're watching, but if this makes it in front of Griffey somehow, you know what that does? It makes it seem like that's how we all are. It makes it seem like we will see our boy doing something sus or see that he can't be trusted in certain situations and we won't do anything about it. And if the worst happens, we'll still have his back. And that is not the case. That is not the case between grown men. Children in grown-up bodies, sure. You know, niggas that never finish growing up, that's probably what happens a lot. But when you have people who have an understanding of the world that we live in and how actions have consequences and how behavioral patterns develop way before something like that can happen. No. No. Because I have people that I talk to, they'll say something that just does not sit right with me, and I'd be like, no. I don't fuck with that. You can't keep saying that. Because if you keep saying that, it leads me to believe that at some point you might do something that I don't rock with, and I will not defend you in that situation. I see that sort of thing, and I stop it. I'm not just going to be like, oh, my boy is awkward, so let him get this girl drunk that he just met and be in a room alone with her. So, basically, my stance on this whole Heavenly situation is fuck Heavenly, fuck Griffey, believe victims. I also believe in waiting until you have a bigger picture, like a clearer picture of the story before you say anything. That's why I waited. That's why I didn't say anything just yet. I wanted to see what Heavenly said. What Heavenly said didn't satisfy me. So here we are. Because I don't believe in witch hunts, right? I believe in believing victims, but what I don't believe in is like once an accusation comes out, you just go straight after the person in question. There does need to be something said by that person, a statement made. There needs to be some level of investigation, right? But you do need to believe the person, first and foremost. You need to take it seriously. Because there's nothing that somebody who's gone through something traumatic or something unpleasant wants less than to say something about it, and then everybody start making fun of them or like talking down on them or attacking them because it's like, oh, you're going after somebody that I like. That's terrible. Don't do that. You need to find some sort of balance between believing the person and witch hunting the person under accusation. Because this is the responsible thing to do. This is the irresponsible thing to do. You believe the person, you wait until more of the story becomes clear, and then if they're witch hunt worthy, you witch hunt them. But yeah. Yeah, that's my stance on the Heavenly situation. And you know how I knew he was corny? Back when Attack on Titan Season 4 was airing earlier this year, one of the episodes got delayed a week because there was an earthquake in Japan and it disrupted the scheduling, the programming schedule. Heavenly said the rumbling started. If you don't know what the rumbling is, it's basically this thing in Attack on Titan that is the center of the story right now. And what it would be is if a bunch of colossal titans were to just walk across the earth, just go stampede the entire planet. That's called the rumbling. And obviously, if a bunch of 60-meter tall creatures stomped on the floor, the earth would shake. So you have an earthquake, Attack on Titan, a joke about the rumbling. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, this nigga's corny. And I unfollowed him. Because people could have been hurt, people could have died, people could have lost their homes, lost their jobs. And Heavenly decided to make a joke about an anime. So yeah. All that being said, though, I'm sorry that this hasn't been my most, well thought out video, probably. But I'll see you later.